9 games to play and a search for more consistency. That and much more coming up live on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, everybody. We are live. I'm in Jersey. He's in New York City. That's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks, and great to have you with us as we get back to regular play with the League's Cup elimination with the loss at Columbus. Well, it wasn't a loss. It was a tie, but then you got to settle things with penalties. I never think of those as losses. I think we always say advancement, Roberto. A team has to advance. That's the way it goes.
I agree. They didn't lose. They tied 1-1 and then lost in a shootout. So, or didn't advance on a shootout if that suits you better.
Yeah. Well,
but it goes down as a tie.
You could lose a shootout. Yeah. I mean, they lost the shootout, but as far as the game, it ends it. And I think it goes on. You know, if there's a permanent record out there, it goes as a draw in the old record books too. That's just the way. That's the way they do it.
Yeah, sure. As it should be.
It should. So now we're getting ready for Chicago Fire. 9 games left, but just to reflect on Leagues Cup a little bit, I think what Nick said and you're going to got a couple of clips from my interview with him that airs on our pregame show coming up this Saturday, tomorrow. That is. Wow.
Yeah. Came quickly.
But he and I think that's pretty accurate, and I'm sure we're probably two people that felt the same way, but no one really expected them to get to the quarterfinals. Let's face it, right? New York City, especially after how some of the previous games had gone in Leagues Cup in particular, and hadn't won since early July before defeating Tigres. We talked about that match last week. And then the Columbus match, not the same level, but I thought it was a pretty tired looking team. That was my assessment.
I thought Columbus was just a better team after they needed the tying goal, right? And so they went after it as they should. New York City scoring in the first 14 seconds officially. And after that, Columbus pretty much, went in looking for the tie. And then they wound up getting it on another cross and header in the box. So, and then the rest of the game, New York City mostly defending and then trying to counterattack. And if you want to look at that as because they were tired or simply because they decided tactically to absorb pressure and then that they thought that might be the best way that they might be able to get a goal and have a lot of confidence in their defense and have a lot of confidence in Matt Freese that they were going to be able to hold on, then fine. But whatever it was, they divided points and they had to go to the penalty kick shootout. And unlike the last 4 times that they had one of those, they did not come out on top.
No, not as precise, but no, the exhausted, gassed, knackered. I think it was the person that I think Exhibit A was Christian McFarlane. I mean, the one question I had during commentary is, to me, it took too long to get him off the pitch. I mean, he was unable to recover. I mean, he couldn't even. Yeah. He just didn't have, and it was another 5, 6, 7 minutes before Kevin O'Toole got into the match, but no damage done. But he, and Santi Rodriguez wasn't as effective, nor Maxi Morales as they were together against Tigres. So I just wonder if part of it was just exhaustion with the traveling, and then the irony, of course, it's back to Columbus after tomorrow. So.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of ironic, right, that the two guys that are probably most responsible for New York City getting as far as they did in the tournament turned out to be the two guys who missed their penalty kicks. And, it's a shame that it happened that way. But I think New York City wound up paying the price for not taking advantage of all the opportunities that they had in the first half, because there were multiples and really good ones. And they had a chance to make this probably 2-3-0, and they didn't do that. And then they commit a marking mistake in the back, and then Cucho Hernandez doesn't forgive that, does he? So it was a tough result because of the opportunities I think that they had in the first half to probably put the game away while they had their legs, if we go with the theory that they were exhausted at the end. And they lost to a good team, but they played them pretty well in a stadium where they haven't beaten them yet. And then you saw Columbus go and just pick apart Philly, and now they've got what seems to be a great game against LAFC, who has been magnificent on the West bracket.
No, it's really looking forward to that one. So that's Sunday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern with the LAFC Columbus. Well, let's go back and Shane will switch the order a little bit. Let's hear Roberto's call. 14 seconds into the match, I'm sure there were some people in the stadium, maybe including members of the coaching staffs, that didn't see this goal because they were walking back to their seat. But just 14 seconds in, here's Alonso Martinez with his 9th goal overall for New York City.
Estamos ya aquí arrancando y New York City acá roba la pelota Martínez se va a meter solo al área, tira y ¡gol! A los 14 segundos New York City anota con el robo de Martínez y la puso a un lado de Schulte. 1-0 New York City.
And Columbus, at least once a game, and I think it was Twellman that brought this up, but he was absolutely accurate. And then moments later, the Philadelphia tied that game up, this most recent game, on another fumble in the back, and then Gazdag took advantage of it. But it was Camacho who got stuck on the ball.
Yeah.
For the way they play, Wilfred Nancy ball, there's an insistence on playing a certain way, and a very stubborn way maybe that they go about it. But they're so good getting forward, and they score so many goals, it almost doesn't matter. They can have a mistake and get away with it. But there was their mistake.
Does it remind you a little bit of another Frenchman coaching a team in MLS?
I guess he's
French in their first year.
Yeah, Patrick Vieira, and he adjusted a little bit, but you see,
not in the first year. He adjusted after the first year.
Yeah.
That was the first chat we had with him. I'm switching things up this year. I'm not going to be as stubborn about playing it out of the back 100% of the time.
Well, in the occasion against Philadelphia, it was just Patrick Schulte just played a terrible ball from goal into, I think it was Cheberko. And it was he just couldn't handle it. He tried to toe poke it square, and that's where Gazdag got on it. And, it was a calamity. But they are so good getting forward. Diego Rossi, getting it done again. Didn't score against New York City, but he has scored against everybody else in Leagues Cup. But it was Cucho Hernandez who did score against New York City. And this goal in the 41st minute, in the last 5 minutes of the first half, and you'll hear Nick Cushing right after this clip talk about it. But here's how Matty Lawrence and I called this goal in the 41st minute that made it 1-1, and eventually it went to penalties.
Into Zalewski, and now the game-tying goal, Cucho Hernandez. Matty Lawrence was just suggesting that he's getting closer. Uncontested service, uncontested header, with great redirection and enough power to get it past Matt Freese, who dove to his right, but Columbus, with just 4 minutes and change remaining until halftime, they get the equalizer.
If you give good players time and space, they will punish them. And Aston has so much time and space. Picks out a cross, too many static bodies. There are 7 pale blue shirts in the penalty area and only 4 yellow. How does a yellow shirt get a run? Gets ahead of Talasiewicz. The header is exquisite though, Glenn. From the penalty spot, a little bit behind him. and he redirects that into the corner. That is terrible, terrible defending again. How many times does Nick Cushing, the head coach, have to say to his players, stop the cross, pick up men in the penalty area?
Well,
how many times does he have to say it? Exactly. And that was the thing that we looked at. The cross was easy there was no pressure on the cross. And Cucho basically gets away from two guys. Come on. You can't let him do that.
That's the third straight game where no denial of service, free header leading to a goal. This time it haunts them because it eventually leads to the penalty kick defeat. So for the second straight week, I brought up this malady to head coach Nick Cushing.
I don't disagree. I think it's also the second time, if you're looking at New England, that we've conceded in that period between 35 and 45. We've got to address that, focus, and being invested in the game and understanding that the game is going to ebb and flow in teams being on top and tiredness if you're going to be aggressive and those type of things. But also, crosses from our left and marking in the box. These are things that, I've said before, when you're at the highest level in these games and the margins are so small, as the game's won in both boxes, you could say that the majority of the game, New York Columbus, is played in the middle of the pitch because of the possession nature of both teams. But ultimately, it's going to be won and lost in the boxes. And Alonso Martinez took his chance, didn't take his second chance with the header, and we gave away a goal. So it's disappointing, but it's something that we need to work on.
Well, you can keep working on it. To me, this part of this is, and one thing we noted, I don't know if you guys saw it. It was the pretty sure it was the New England game that James Sands looked very upset with his teammates going into the locker room. I mean, just looked very, very upset. And I just wonder, accountability, like players holding each other accountable in those situations, I'm telling you from experience, is better than the coach, unless the coach says, if you do that one more time, you're sitting for 5 games,
Yeah.
But I know that's my sense is that's not the way this coaching staff operates in any manner. But I think sometimes you get to a point where the one thing you could do, if Nick Cushing doesn't want to be like the quote unquote bad guy and just instruct, say this is what has to happen, maybe he can get to a captain or one of the leadership and say, hey, you got to talk to him. You got to say, and you can see, he talked about the left side. It's been McFarlane a couple of times. He's 17 years old. All right, we could say he's still learning, even though denying a service is taught to you from the time you're like 8 years old. So I don't want to hear about age. I really don't. And then Santi Rodriguez was the other one. And maybe he's just gassed to the gills and, couldn't, but he didn't make an effort. So it's one of those foundational things. It's one of those principal things, but internal leadership has to take over there. Players have to hold themselves accountable for this. I don't know if anybody said anything to Tanasiewicz, but I would have as a player, as a teammate. What are you kidding me? Letting that guy run inside of you, the best forward in the league, maybe? So it's crazy.
The guy who normally that we see talking to the defense a lot is a captain, which is Thiago Martins.
Yeah.
He's always talking to people. He's always giving direction, and he gets on people. We've seen that. Yeah. So, so there is leadership, especially there in the back, that tries to hold people accountable. And I think that even though you have these mistakes, and they're more mental mistakes than anything else, where you turn off for a second, and that's all some of these guys need to get separation and to be able to get themselves into a good spot, either to cross or to head or both. And that maybe it would have been a hell of a lot worse if Martins and Sands, if he did that, don't get into people, and make them more responsible for their assignments.
Yeah. Well, as we said, I'm sure you said too, it was a fantastic finish by Hernandez. Here's a guy, and I think I have this right. In his last 40 games, all competitions, he has 42 goal contributions. I mean, that's, and then you got Diego Rossi, who has scored 12 goals in his last 14 games. So, you know, I mean, it's crazy what's going on. And then if you're Christian Ramirez, you're like, woo, look at these two guys I get to play with. And then he gets freed up. So,
and to say nothing of the midfield that supports, I mean, the fact that you can trade away or sell an Aiden Morris, right? And then you still have quality that's there that helps. I mean, like, I was really impressed with Farsi, especially the game previous to the New York City game, which is the Inter Miami game, where he comes in the game and he's one of those people that are absolutely responsible for turning that game on its head from a 2-0 deficit to a 3-2 win in 13 minutes. I mean, he was one of those guys who kept on attacking. And, you know, we had mentioned this in the Spanish broadcast before the game, that this is one of the guys to look at because he is, you know, he has that ability. And then to say nothing of somebody like Darlington Nagbe, who is just a fabulous player, and he's so much on the ball and setting the tone, setting the pace, getting the ball in the right areas, opening up the right guys. I mean, he just opens up defenses with just simple, smart passes all the time. I mean, this is a really, really good team. It's no accident that they're the champions, and it's no accident that they're in the finals again.
Yeah. No, Farsi's fantastic. And he's a great story along with Schulte. They both came from the MLS Next Pro side, where they were important players there when they won the very first MLS Next Pro Championship in 2022 under Laurent Courtois, who's now the CF Montreal manager, another Frenchman. And and then they elevated, and you know, they're obviously important parts. I wanted to show this, Roberto. I have to assume that these figures are accurate about Leagues Cup and the viewership, but you usually have a good bead on, you know, what these things mean. If you could put that up, Shane, our producer today, and 135K viewers on FS1 last year, 30K in 2024.
Okay.
So
let's give the context.
Okay.
Okay, the context, comparing it to last year, Lionel Messi played, and that was Lionel Messi's debut. So people were absolutely on top of those games, and those Miami games had huge viewership. And now this year, obviously he's injured, so he's not playing. These games have terrible viewership, but also all those games are being broadcast on Apple TV, aside from FS1. Some of them are also being on Fox Deportes, which they didn't put up those numbers there, which go along with Fox. And then there are the other games that are being broadcast on Univision. But yes, those numbers are terrible. The numbers on FS1
let me just
terrible.
chime in 1 second. That Messi debut last year in Leagues Cup, I don't believe that was not on FS1. It was on Apple only.
Right.
They were trying to get subscribers.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But the thing is that we don't know what the Apple numbers are unless they ever decide to release them, and they only do that when they want to. All they keep on saying is that it's better than expected, at least in the times that they've spoken about it. There have been reports where maybe that isn't what they're saying internally, supposedly, but those reports are unconfirmed. Apple, when they do talk about it, have said, well, the numbers are better than expected, especially once Messi got there. The numbers on FS1 haven't been great for sure, but there's lots of reasons for that you can make for that. The fact that the promotion has been lacking, there's fact that the coverage has been really, really poor. You know, I watch Sports Center and I see like a ton of WNBA, which is great, and I'm very, very happy for that. I even see NWSL. I rarely see MLS. And I don't know if they have rights issues as far as showing games or showing highlights or not, because those things have to be purchased. They're not just given. So it really depends. Or it could just be that they've decided that it's not important enough to be able to show. So the league still has that issue, right? And then Leagues Cup itself, there's a lot of naysayers this year on the Spanish side. You know, I'm in touch a lot with Mexican fans here in the country and in Mexico, and they've all been killing the tournament for whatever reasons. And so there's a lot more naysayers than anything else. I mean, I like the tournament. I enjoy it. I love to see Mexican teams play American teams and
Well,
Canadian teams.
that's just it.
Right.
I
I
have no
love it.
interest. I have no interest. Although this game, there's a level of interest in this game Sunday because it's two very good soccer teams playing. So you're looking forward to a good soccer match, and it'll be hopefully exciting. But I'm not at all interested. I'm not at all interested in an MLS team playing an MLS team in this Leagues Cup. I know you have to have it because there's more MLS teams than Liga MX, but I'm just saying those games don't interest me an iota. But I love when the MLS teams are playing the Mexican teams. I think there's a special flavor to that, to me.
Oh, I mean, I think that it absolutely enhances it. There's no doubt. I mean, that game against Tigres, I mean, everybody was hyped. I wish more than 12,000 and change had showed up at Red Bull Arena for the game, because it turned out to be a really excellent, fun game, and you saw that both teams went for it. Now in Mexico, the fan base thinks that the Mexican teams don't care at all about the tournament. All they wanted to do was go home and play their own tournament. I did not see that reflected in the level of play or passion that Mexican teams showed in this tournament. What I did see was that a lot of them didn't play very well, and MLS teams grew to the occasion, and the Mexican teams, really poor on penalties, especially against Colorado, as it seems. And they wound up having a terrible tournament. They didn't even make it to semifinals. And America, you would have to believe, was the best team coming into this tournament. Even better than Columbus, even better than LAFC, yet they pretty much didn't play like it. And, there is the advantage of teams in the United States playing at home. America was able to play basically home games in Southern California. They played their first game in San Diego, and the rest of the games they played in the Galaxy Stadium, although they wound up losing to Colorado in a penalty kick shootout.
Yep. Colorado was ranked 46 out of 47 teams, and Club America was number 1. So that was quite an upset as far as just looking at the straight stuff.
Oh, yeah.
This is interesting, Roberto. So Philadelphia and Columbus played in the previous round, and they were scheduled to play this weekend in the regular year. So they obviously had to, and they announced this even before they played the Leagues Cup match, that they had rescheduled for next Wednesday, which I found interesting because there's a couple of international windows that maybe they could have taken it deeper into but for whatever reason, and the two clubs had to agree, and I suppose Apple had to agree. I suppose there's a lot of people involved with this, but just from the New York City standpoint, Columbus is going to be at Philadelphia at Subaru Park on a Wednesday night, and then they have to come back and play New York City, who will not have a midweek game. It's back at Columbus, but that's got to be – New York City has to take advantage of that sort of thing. There's no way Columbus will be in full fitness for that match, or there'll be a lot of changes, and maybe those players will take advantage of it. Yeah,
they'll rotate for sure. But, they're a really good team. They're fun to watch, too. And the crowds at Lower Darkow Field make a lot of noise.
You don't see that as significant then? You just completely ignore what I said.
No, it's not that I don't see it significant. It is. I don't think that's going to be the reason that the result changes. It might be. I mean, I see it significant, but I don't think that it's like a huge advantage. I think it's an advantage because of training methods and rotations and things. I don't think it's a huge advantage. Obviously, it helps New York City that Columbus has to go on the road to play this game as opposed to playing at home. But it's a 90-minute flight. It's not going to Portland and back.
Yeah.
It's not even going to Dallas and back or Fort Lauderdale and back. Okay. It's even shorter than that. It's a quick flight.
All right. Okay. I'll accept. Chicago Fire, the opponent. It was 0-0 at Soldier Field. Just a dreadful game when these two played earlier in the year. So we can only hope. Let's just hope. Obviously from our end, we would like to see New York City get the win, but let's just hope and pray for a more entertaining game. It's at Citi Field.
The bar isn't high compared to the last game. That it would be more entertaining.
Well, true.
Because just
it's
below
nothing-
that, okay, so here's the Chicago-New York game in Soldier Field, okay, and just below that is watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Just below.
I think each team, I didn't pull it up, but I think each team had one shot on frame. That was the game. I mean,
In cavernous Soldier Field, and what do they have? Close to 20,000 people for that game.
it's nice to see the third rail out at training on Wednesday. That was
Oh, cool.
yeah, they were there, and then the open training for us was Thursday, and now it's a Friday, and then Citi Field will kick off at 7:40 back with the regular year. MLS revealed the format and dates for the playoffs, and the format remains the same, Roberto, which I guess is no surprise.
No.
The, number 8 and 9 teams on each side of the conferences, the East and West. They'll play one wild card game on October 13th. Then round 1 is a best of 3 series again. Then no games during the FIFA international break, November 11th through the 19th. Then the conference semis, finals, and MLS Cup are single games. And penalties will have to decide if it goes that way. But there will be overtime in those games, okay?
Yeah, there will be.
There will be overtime in those games if necessary.
I'm almost happy that there wasn't overtime in these games because, I mean, the travel and everything else and everything's so compressed. It would have hurt the types of games that we wound up seeing if everything went, to overtime. So I'm not totally against it, although I really don't love that format. But in this case, I sort of understand it.
Hey, and the other thing, New York City. So I said New York City needs to take advantage of having greater rest than Columbus. I still think it's a pretty big deal to me. But they also need to take advantage of the fact that Chicago Fire hasn't played in like a year. They got eliminated. It was there very early in July, late July. So they haven't played literally a month by the time they it's almost a month by the time they take the field against New York City. So, and Frank Klopas said they tried to schedule some friendlies or a friendly or something, but it was just because they couldn't do it. According to Frank, they couldn't do it. They just did intra-squad scrimmages. So that's you do what you do, but that you got to. That's another one. They're not going to be in great form, I would think.
No, you would expect them not to be. I mean, if New York City doesn't get a positive result out of this game, and I don't care if it's just 2-1, it's going to be terrible. They have to. This is a must 3-point game for New York City.
And I did ask Nick Cushing, and he intimated that about a consistent 11 the rest of the way. I know this is what he prefers, and here's what he said about that.
What you can start to see in most teams is, and we'll be no different, that teams will start to play an 11, 12, 13, 14 players that, will start to grow together. We saw that a little bit across Leagues Cup with us. It's probably the first time in a long while I picked the exact same 11 between Tigres and Columbus. But, there's a lot of different things in that, right? We've got James Sands that is on a yellow card a game now, and he's on 2 yellow cards away from a suspension, so that's probably going to happen. And we've got 2 players in Malachi and Andres Pereira that are pushing to be back involved before the end of the season, and Agustin Ojeda and Julian Fernandez and Monsef Bakker and Jovan Mijatovic and many more. Kevin O'Toole wants to be back in the team, but Christian's playing well, so it's complex. But yeah, I think as we start to chip away at the 9 games, you start to see a settled 11.
So he mentioned Malachi Jones and Andres Pereira there too, Roberto. Pereira was still just running on the side without a ball.
Yeah.
But Nick told me on the pregame show, which again, that's my one-on-one, which will air on the pregame show tomorrow at 7:15 Eastern. He said he's trying to get him back by August 31st, the Columbus game. And I don't know how that's going to happen. I mean, he's not he hasn't been integrated into training yet, regular training. And Malachi Jones, both of them, I'm sure we'll see them by the end of the year. But, when
I'd be shocked to see Malachi Jones. I mean, they've got to be
not Jones.
voodoo.
No, not Jones the 31st, Pereira.
No, I get that. But even before the end of the year, if Malachi Jones plays at any time in 2024, I mean, they're using voodoo. I mean,
it's not. I'm telling you, whatever is going on, it's science, man. It's medical. It's science. It's rehab. Things are different now, Roberto. And please do not compare his injury to yours, because there's a pretty significant age gap, and I think he probably has a little more consistency in the rehab and who's working with him and things like that. I'm not saying anything about the people that did your rehab. I'm saying
They did a great job.
He's this is his profession. Your profession.
I get that, but I mean, he had it wasn't a compound fracture, but he broke his tib fib. Those are 2 bones. And, to be back and ready to play and getting the muscle strength back after you do that. I mean, it just takes a long time. I'm shocked if he plays this year. I don't think he plays this year. As much as optimistic as Nick is with all the advances in sciences from whenever to now. I mean, it's 5 years ago that I did mine. That's different. Okay. And no, I didn't go through the same rehab regimen that Malachi is going through. His operation was slightly different than mine as well, because we've spoken about it. He does have the same basically titanium rod in his leg that I do. So that part is similar, but it takes a while to heal from that and to recover and to gain strength from that, because basically your leg, it's like taking a balloon and sticking a pin in it. All the air comes out. You've got to be able to rebuild all the muscle. And
well,
that just doesn't come. I know he's been doing this. I know he has.
He's jogging on the side. I mean, he's like,
he's going to recover so much faster than I ever could. No doubt about that. 100%, whatever. I'm just saying that I will be shocked, and I'll be thrilled, by the way, if he's able to play again in 2024. I'll be thrilled.
All right.
I'm rooting for him.
I'm sure he'll be thrilled that you'll be
wrong.
Well, they wouldn't be talking about it's not like a some sort of advanced scout advantage to say this guy might play.
No, there's no gamemanship in any of this. No, I don't think so. I just think I'll be learning a lot about science if this actually happens in this area.
Well, the Pereira thing is more of a mystery, and it's just it's an adductor, and it obviously was a tear, or he wouldn't have been out for this length of time. And again, he just hasn't had a ball yet. But hey, look, the sooner he gets back, the better. The thing I said to Nick, you heard Nick talk about Sands. He's going to get suspended again someday, and hopefully Pereira is ready by whenever that eventuality is.
Although, as much as I want Pereira to get back, and we all know all the things that he provides, especially in attacking mode more than anything else, based on what I'm about to say. But Justin Hack has been absolutely
he's been a savior.
Fantastic.
Been a savior, I think. Yep.
Yeah.
No question. And whether it's at the back or in the midfield. And he's
played 4 or 5 different positions since all of a sudden he was reinserted into the regular rotation. Since Pereira went down?
Yeah, so it's like so he's been center back, he's been a fullback, he's been a midfielder.
Left back.
Yeah, left and right.
Left back, and then playing midfield as well. It's nuts. It's crazy. It's great to see him play as well as he has, and come in and do his job, and no matter what the situation, because a lot of those situations where he had to come into, especially as a reserve, as opposed to all the games that he started as well, were situations that were intense pressure situations. And he came in and he just helped stabilize things. He was just cool, calm, and collected. He has helped himself considerably in his value since he got himself a chance to come back and play. And here's somebody, right, who worked hard, worked diligently, and kept his mouth shut, obviously, waiting for his turn again while he was basically out of the rotation. And then once he got a chance again, he let his play do the talking, and he's done a fantastic job. And I'm thrilled for him. And that's the way you got to handle it, exactly the way he did.
Okay, let's review. Roberto is thrilled for Malachi Jones, and he's thrilled for Justin Hack. We're going to keep track of the who he's thrilled for. The clear part of
the pride and joy of environmental studies high school, by the way.
Okay. I would say that whenever Justin Hack's been given the opportunity, he's pretty much taken advantage of it. When he's had that chance. No, and it's usually when somebody goes down injured. And that's it's like from a coaching standpoint, it's like, wow, all right, you got to get it done, man, and he's been able to do it. All right, Roberto, let's kick it around, dude.
Let's.
Hey, before we get into this, Homage is, as you know, Roberto, is
Yes.
the sponsor of our lovely sick podcast, NYCFC Views. And I should be better prepared to be able to hold up one of these t-shirts. The t-shirt I have on right now is the Coaching Academy. So
I still haven't opened it. I still have it here.
Well, that doesn't help. Open the damn thing. Oh my goodness. He's gonna. That's right. Your son is gone. Your son left you, so now
Eddie's gone. So now I'm going to open it. Fine. He's going to be upset. Oh well, let's see what we got.
What a beautiful ad.
Let's see what we got. Ooh. Very nice. Look at this.
Oh, that is nice.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, yours didn't come like this?
I don't know.
So this is the. I'm wondering what I got here. Hold on.
Check out the material, Roberto.
Yeah.
That is
really soft.
It's so soft, man. I mean,
oh man.
I wear them all the time. I just not for this particular.
Okay, so let me see what I got. We got a couple of t-shirts.
Yeah.
Very nice with the
nice.
With the logo. Nothing on the back.
Nope. Good large logo.
And that. What did I get? So it's another t-shirt. So I don't have to open that.
All right, we don't need to see the rest of them. We don't need to see the rest of them.
No, hold on. Yeah, we're going to see the rest. Why not? Were you going someplace?
Well,
yes. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're talking to me.
All right, and there's
Trust me. This is better than talking to me.
You can't even tell us the hoodie. Put the hood
It's a really nice hoodie.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a very thin hoodie. It's like almost like the same material from the t-shirts.
Yep.
So it's really nice. And if you like the oversized logo motif, if that is your style with the oversized logo motif, sort of like Glenn's ego here, you go for that. And then that is really cool. And you can go and show it off at Citi Field on Saturday.
Now it says in our little promo and ad, learn more about Homage with a link in the description. Where's the link? Is there really?
Homage.com.
Okay.
I guess.
All right. Very
good.
I
would think.
All right, thank you, Shane. Here we are kicking it around. All right, U.S. men's national team. So Pochettino still has not been officially named, which is interesting because the person I'm following is Doug McIntyre, Fox Soccer. He seems to be he's connected with somebody in U.S. soccer where he's getting some I think information ahead of all of us.
Yes, he is.
But he thought earlier in the week he said Tuesday. That there could very well be an announcement. Well, it's Friday now. And also in that article, Doug said next week in New York City would be where the announcement would be made. And it reminded me of Greg Berhalter's announcement because that was also in New York City. I think you were there, Roberto. I know.
I was.
Yeah, we were both at the Trump Tower. It was in a Trump
Tower.
Well, it was in a Trump. I'm
telling you where it was. I'm going to tell you where it was. And it was not Trump Tower. It wasn't Trump Tower.
It was a Trump building. It was
Freedom. Tower. No, it was a Freedom Tower.
No,
if I don't have it, if I have it correctly.
Well,
I think it was a Freedom Tower. Maybe I'm wrong now.
Well, Trump can't have his name on anything in New York City anymore, can he?
Well, he still does in some things. The Trump Tower is still there, but there was a Trump Tower. That was where the old CONCACAF offices were when Trump Blazer was around.
I didn't mean I misspoke tower. I remember seeing Trump at the front of the building. But anyway. We'll leave that be. So Pochettino. So
I don't remember. Maybe somebody else remembers, and we'll let us know because now I forgot.
Well, okay.
I thought it was I really thought it was the top. I believe it was the top of the Freedom Tower or World Trade Center, whatever you want to call it. That's what I remember it being up there, but maybe I'm wrong.
It was a beautiful room. I will say that.
Yes.
Pochettino. So here's the book I told Roberto last week to read. So let's just show it, Shane. I've got it. I'm holding it here too. So this, what I'm saying about this book, and look, I'm not an agent for Guillaume Balaguer, but he had unlimited access to Pochettino in the 2016-17 season when Pochettino was with Spurs. And what happens when you read this book is you get a lot of insight into Pochettino and his ways, his methods. Now, he may have developed, and I think all coaches continue to develop and discover new things. So there might be additional items that are part of his programs, but there's some really cool stuff. And Roberto, I don't know where I read this. And again, you see so much, when you go on X. But there was someone who put out that he's going to be allowed to live in Europe, where he has a home, so that he won't live permanently in the U.S. So that caused some, back and forth on Twitter and X. But here, I want to read an excerpt. It's pretty early on in the book, and it's interesting. And again, this is 6 or 7 years ago, where he says, because his father-in-law died while he was away from his wife. And you read the book and you see how close he is to his family. And so he talks about, if something terrible happens one day, you blame yourself. I miss doing everyday stuff with my wife and kids, and distance only heightens that feeling of missing things that I should not miss. When you're young, you think that passion is about investing all your time in what you do, but perhaps it's part of growing older and wiser to realize that the key is quality, not quantity.
Yes.
I think there's probably some legitimacy to the fact that he ain't going to be full-time in the States.
Yeah, there is. And I like his thought on that. Look, just as somebody, you and I were talking about this earlier today. So for the past year, I've been counting down the days to Eddie going to college, which happened yesterday. And it was, it's been a difficult few days. On one end, I'm really happy for him and I'm really proud of him. And, this is what we're supposed to do, right? Get our kids prepared to be able to leave the nest. But, it hurts. It hurts a lot. And so I understand when Pochettino wants to spend time with family and all that, because those days are precious. And look, you did it with your daughter as well, right? And she went further away than Eddie did. It was only 90 minutes away by car. So we understand that. Maybe some of the younger people who are watching, this podcast are like, no, he should be totally invested. And the only thing that matters is the U.S. national team. And he should be 24/7, 365 a day, only thinking about that and nothing else matters. But it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. There's got to be a life balance. And for him, that's what it is. Do we still believe he's going to do the best job of anybody else out there to be able to coach the national team? And I would say yes.
But Roberto, the point here is that the quality versus quantity is, you're in a better frame of mind. That's, I on my Sirius XM FC show, the Coaching Academy, there have been several shows over the last year to year and a half where I've had coaches on, and our discussion point is allowing, especially like academy coach. Let's take the MLS Next guy. These young coaches, they're trying to rise in their profession. So what they're doing is they're just going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you can work that. There's always something to do. There's always something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's working in a detrimental fashion, and we're starting to discover that now. I discovered it too late. I retired from Rutgers because I was going to probably jump off the Brooklyn Bridge because, the stress but I didn't.
You couldn't find a good bridge in Jersey?
I didn't manage. No, I didn't manage myself properly. And yes,
Right.
My daughter is in Albuquerque, but you know what? The positives I take away from that is that we raised her in a way where she feels very strong and independent and is okay to be on her own and not have to have us by her side. I like that
Right.
part of it too, and
right. And that's what this is supposed to be about, right? This is when, they've got to learn all this and mature and do that. So as much as it hurts not having him here and being able to be sarcastic with him 24/7, which is our relationship, right? That we just give each other crap all the time. And we have a lot of fun with that. I'm missing that, but this is the best thing for him. And
Yeah.
he's he's going to grow from this, and he's going to become a better person for all of this. And this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to prepare them for the world. And although this might hurt personally for me in a selfish fashion, but still it's the best thing for him.
Okay.
And so
Yep.
we get that. The whole point being, and now going back to the point of Pochettino, which I don't want to lose focus on, is
Correct.
that you have to have that work-life balance. Because if you're in a better frame of mind and not stressing about things that are outside of soccer, because you're not giving them enough attention and you're not giving them, the priority that they deserve, then you're not going to be an effective coach.
But Ben
or
Olsen,
whatever else you're doing.
well, Ben Olsen, talked to him after he got the Houston Dynamo job, and after for 2 years he wasn't coaching, right?
Mhm.
And he was going to functions with his wife, like out with the neighbors or what. He was doing all these different things. So when I talked to him, I said, "Oh, so you learn now how to balance that, because how important." Because he said he was refreshed, he had his energy back, and he said, "No, I'm just back doing exactly what I did before." So Ben Olsen will burn out again. I don't know when, but
Yeah.
he hasn't changed, which
Right.
I found. And I told him straight up. I said I find it unfortunate that you're just going back to what you did at DC United when you eventually just couldn't do it anymore. So I agree. Hey, I wanted to read one more passage out of the. Look, I'm alternating reading this book and Emma Hayes' book. I'm just going back and forth, and it's really fun.
Just don't get them confused.
So he's talking about rules, and he says, "I've never punished a player for being late. I prefer to talk it over with them. Punishment is the preserve of those who can't wield their power in other ways. That is left for those who think they are bosses. I believe in leadership. They are two different things."
That's great.
That's
great. And it's smart. It's great and it's smart. It's an understanding of your position and of your power and how to best use it to get the best out of the people that you're in charge of. That's brilliant. I love that. That's really good. We're learning a lot more, because if you remember back to the 60s, right? Like so that's my reference of being introduced to sports and seeing 60s, 70s, and seeing the type of coaches that they were, that the coaches that were admired were the drill sergeants. In Minnesota, they talked about, like they wouldn't give them water in the hottest practices because it built character and it gave you strength. It's idiotic, right? But that's what they thought would help.
Bud Grant.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There was a player, I don't know if this was under Bud Grant, but there was a player in Minnesota that died because of that. And so, I'm glad that science and psychology is starting to come more and more to the forefront to better understand how to handle these situations and what is best to be able to get the best out of the players, right? Which is what you're looking for, right? That is still the ultimate goal. It's just a different way of going about it, which hopefully is a much better way.
And that's what separates coaches. The Emma Hayes book is all on it's a leadership book. And it's really, she's a remarkable woman. And when I'm done with it, I'll share a little bit more. And hopefully I'm going to get her on my show someday. But I won't get Pochettino, but I'm trying to get Guillaume Balaguer back on, because I had him on in 2018 after he published this book. I'm intrigued. When you're a coach, you might be more intrigued than others who don't really care. They just want them to come in and win. But I think how he goes about. Can I tell one more story from the book? I don't know if I've ever told you this one. I think it's incredible. So what he did with Spurs early on, because he wasn't getting the most of them out of training, there was something wrong at training. So what he did is he put a camera up at the entrance of the facility.
Oh, yeah.
So he saw the players as they were coming into the facility, and then how they looked and their body language when they exited the facility. So there were several players. He didn't name them in the book, but there were players who, when they were coming into the facility, their head was down. They didn't look very happy about being there. And then when they exited the facility, they were like, "I'm out of here." So what he would do is those particular players, he would call them in for individual meetings, and then he would show them the tape of when they were coming in and when they were leaving. And he was not trying to bust their balls. He was trying to get the reasoning out for, I just want to know, why are you not that happy coming in as you are leaving? What is it about training? He wanted to learn more about himself as well. And I think, when you are reviewing what you're doing, but most of all, he wanted to hear from the players. So what's the problem? So
Absolutely. And it's good that he confronted it that way, as opposed to, why are you doing this? Why are you so pissed off coming in and so happy leaving? It's like, okay, what is motivating you that this is happening? And then you take that and then you say, okay, what can I do to change this? Because now it's on the manager.
Yeah.
Once he confronts the player, and not in a negative fashion again, but to learn that what are the reasons are that this is happening, then it's up to the coach to be able to say, all right, this is what's happening. I've got to change it. It's up to me now to find ways to motivate this player to be as happy coming onto the field as he is leaving the field.
Yeah. No, it's, I thought it was a remarkable, introspection by
I love these things, by the way.
Mauricio.
I love these coaching things when it comes to that. I love it. I think it's fascinating. The psychology of sports that's becoming more and more prevalent and important in coaching. I'm intrigued by it. Well, it's great because we learn lessons about life in general because of them. It makes me a better father, for instance.
No, raising your kids and coaching a team, there are many, 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 many overlaps. Believe me, and you're right. It's really a practice of both. And I want to pull something up here because one more. Let me give you another coaching thing. There's a new the center back for Liverpool, Kwanzaa. He's next to Van Dijk now, and so Liverpool won their opening match. They beat Ipswich on the road 2-0. But and then you've got a new coach, Arne Slot, right? The Dutchman replacing Klopp. So he did a post-game interview. You know how I really do like this too. The NBC's coverage or USA Network. I don't know who you could Peacock. I don't know who gets credit, but they've got the desk next to the field.
NBC,
they tend to get the coach after each game. At least the winning coach. And it was a poor first half, and he said his quote was, "You don't have to speak about tactics if you don't win any duels." And in that interview, he mentioned, and so these are different leadership styles. In the interview, like a lot of coaches will never mention a player or throw them under the bus. And he basically said, that's why I yanked Kwanzaa at halftime. He told them. Yeah. And when you look and then I went on FOTMob, 0 for 5 in duels at the half. So I'm sure they laid that in front of him and go like, young man, you're not participating today. You're not competing. So we're going to make a move. And second half, it was there was a response. So now how does that player react in their next game? We'll see. I don't know. But
I mean, it should be I'm not losing 5 duels. I mean, that's what it should be. It's like I'm getting stuck in no matter what, because my livelihood is in danger, because if I do this again, I'm not going to be worried about being replaced at halftime. I'm not going to start. I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah. Nuts. So that's good. Well, I'll bring up more coaching things because they are intriguing. I mean, I've got everything behind me here is a rack of coaches' books, but not just soccer. I've got, who have I got down there? I've got Bobby Hurley, Sr., his book, legendary coaching figure. There's Rick Pitino. There's Pat Riley, Bill Parcells, Phil Jackson, Bill Walsh.
There you go.
Thing is, and if you talk to like Greg Berhalter, right? When I had a long sit down with him once, and he talked about all the different coaches that he studied. Whatever you want to think of Greg Berhalter, he did not lack the attention to detail and learning his craft from whoever could maybe give him a little edge. And so I remember him telling me he sat in during the off season of the Cleveland Indians were doing leadership stuff. And he got himself involved in a weekly leadership meeting with the staff of the Cleveland Indians. I mean,
that's great. And I think Greg Berhalter is going to become a better coach for all of this, by the way, because you're going to sit down and analyze what you did right, what you did wrong, and hopefully you learn from it. You're going to get advice from other people as well, people in the industry or leadership, and he's going to come out better for this.
Tylus Magno on loan to Corinthians, and Roberto. As we come to a close here, he plays for Corinthians, 3 games, 2 starts, game tying goal in his debut, game winning goal against Red Bull. He started in a 0-0 draw at the Maracanã, and he had one of their 2 shots on goal.
Good for him.
But the Maracanã, no, I know it's a famous facility, but I don't think I ever have really dug in to what it is. So I'm just going to give you a few things. You probably know all this.
Oh, yeah.
In Rio de Janeiro. So back in the days before they took seats out of the stadium, all right, they drew 150,000 plus on 26 occasions. More than 100,000 fans 284 times. The capacity now at the Maracanã, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
73,139.
That's a shame.
The stadium was opened in 1950 to host the World Cup. That's why it was built. And Uruguay beat Brazil 2-1 in the final, which is like it's a national day of sorrow. They celebrate, quote unquote, every year in Brazil.
It's not a celebration.
It's a national day.
They remember
sorrow.
it. They remember it. They don't celebrate it.
But did you see me go in quotes celebrate?
Yeah, but still, even you can't associate celebrate that word. Celebrate even in quotes.
Roberto, would you just handle what I'm telling you? They mark that day in sorrow. It's like a massive day that they recognize from 1950 losing to Uruguay in the World Cup final. Why was it such a day of disaster? Because the local politicians had already created all these things about that they had already won. They already had the champagne. They already had a national day of recognition planned. And the parade, everything was planned because there was no chance that they were going to lose this game. It was a national tragedy. And the goalkeeper, Barbosa, he made a big mistake on the game-winning goal. He got beat at the near post, which goalkeepers, they get beat back in 1950. Don't get beat at the near post. 20 years later, he overheard a woman in a supermarket say to her son, "There's the man who made Brazil cry." I mean, and it's destroyed him. It impacted the rest of his life detrimentally that a woman would tell her son that 20 years after the fact. He said, under Brazilian law, the maximum sentence is 30 years for a crime, a major crime. Barbosa remarked on his 79th birthday, just 2 weeks before he passed away, but my imprisonment has been for 50 years. I mean, this is what it meant to them. So, I mean, I'm bringing it up because it again, anytime the passion and what the sport means across the world, I think is part of what holds the U.S. men's national team back. I think we don't have players that have suffered or come from countries that are at just at this point where the soccer is more important than anything. You win or we have a national tragedy.
And for the players that so many of them come from impoverished backgrounds, it also means that either you succeed or not literally, but maybe starve.
There were stories of deaths and suicides. I read a lot of stories. I was trying to find, there's never been confirmation that there were actual suicides in the stadium after the final whistle, but there are claims that happened. There were deaths in the stadium, people with heart attacks. I'm just, wow.
I'm all for passion in soccer and in sports. It's taking it a step too far.
Well, I agree, but you're understanding the point I'm making, right, Roberto? And why I'm bringing it up. Is that not a fascinating story, the whole thing?
Of course it is, 100%.
Well, you're not with me.
Of course it is. No, I am with you. It's just that there are levels, right? There are levels to all these things. It's not just either one or the other. It's like you're with me or you're without me. It's not like that.
I'm not suggesting a Portland Timber fan should have ended his life, out in Portland when New York City won on penalties. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it's different. And I do think
it's different. There should
I do think the lack of that edge and playing in that pressure on a consistent basis is what holds us back a little bit.
In soccer is different from other sports because if you look at either baseball or basketball or the NFL, a lot of the players there, I mean, that's their ticket out of a terrible financial situation, a terrible social situation. That's their ticket. In soccer, it's not that. Most of the kids who've played soccer go to academies where are very expensive to play. They come out of college. They're educated. It's a whole different thing. It's not the same. And yes, and I believe that sort of desperation, that those environmental things, that they gave, that happened to you, right, are the ones that can turn it around for you and make you succeed, because you have that level of desperation that this is my only chance out.
Yeah, no. And look, I had a good friend who and there were these names on a board, and I was looking at them, and we were going over the players and future pros, perhaps. Okay, future pros, perhaps. There were three of them. Said this guy's father is an investment banker. This guy is a hedge fund, and this guy, owns, is a trillionaire. Now, that's the families they come from. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. That doesn't mean if you're rich, that doesn't mean you can't compete and you won't run through a brick wall and you won't do the things necessary to advance to the next level. But I believe that's the exception. I mean, if you're and you just described coming from a more impoverished background, I need to be a pro because I need to feed my family. Much different. And that little edge, that little moment, will you run through it to head the ball home, will you do it? And because of how you were raised, well, why?
See the difference.
I'm okay, man. I'm okay. Why would I do it? So I think those are the, I don't know how you study that so much, but that would be a good book. Maybe there's a book out there on it. I don't know, but that would be a good book.
If there is, let us know.
Yeah. Tati Castellanos, Argentina call-up. Congratulations,
awesome.
Tati. That is so cool. 2026 World Cup, Roberto. For those who are outside of the country trying to get in, some are going to wait 677 days to get the proper visa to get into the country. They're not sure if they're going to be able to get in.
Oh, God.
Especially in Colombia. Where else did I see? NPR. If you want to read about this, NPR online did an article on this. It's fascinating. But because of the politics and the tensions around immigration, I wonder who made that happen. That it's harder to get into the country. Okay?
Yeah.
Just go to the World Cup.
Legally.
Yeah, legally.
It's harder to get in legally.
Yeah. So Raphael Nam, N-A-M, wrote the article, and one of his quotes was, "But the clock is ticking, and for some fans, it may already be too late." It's 2 years down the road.
I hope that they're able to get that. It's literally all about wanting to and manpower, which, it's up to the United States to put enough people there to be able to get these visas sorted out and approved. They will be able to go, hopefully, to Mexico and to Canada to see games. They just may not be able to come to see the ones in the U.S. And now there are more games in Mexico and in Canada than originally said that they would be.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. I wonder if November 5th will impact how people get in. I don't know. I mean,
if 100% is going to impact it. Don't even
one way or the other. One way
it's going to impact it. Yes, immigration will change. Immigration will change one way or the other.
We should do. You know what we should do? I just think we should do a live NYCFC Views on election night and do some election
God.
coverage as well. How
I
much
don't
fun would
wanna
that
do-
be?
No,
How much
it won't
fun would
be.
that be?
I
Are we allowed-
already did that. I already did that for ESPN Deportes when Trump beat Hillary. I did that. Yeah, I don't want to do that one again. I'm good.
All
I'm
right.
good. That was a very rough night
We'll
to be
talk
doing
soccer.
politics.
We'll talk soccer, and then we can work different things in.
I'm gonna be too nervous watching that. And
All
if
right.
people know which way I'm voting, that's fine. Just vote the same way. I'm not
You know what
shy about it.
You know what? I would like to conclude this by telling a story. So
All right.
I have a there's a pool at a gym I go in my town, and I went to go for a swim today. Now, for those out there that go to the pools to swim and they have lanes, sometimes you have to wait because there's only 2 to a lane, and so I was waiting my turn, and this guy who was swimming hopped up out of the pool. And he said, "Would you like to go now?" And I said, "Well, I can wait till you complete, whatever you're doing." He goes, "No, you know what? After last night, I really feel like I want to do something good for you today. You're a stranger. I don't know you, but I would really like to say, look." And to me, that's passing it on. And
Yes.
all I know is that, and the biggest thing for me, and what I like about the positive nature of what's happened the last few days, is that I truly believe in pass it on. One thing I've asked my family to do is once a day, do something nice for a stranger. It could be just hold the door open, or whatever it might be, somebody who's struggling with the groceries, just, carry it to their car, whatever it could be a tiny, tiny thing. Just say hello. Maybe it's that. But something, because I really, truly believe that if you treat somebody like that, now they'll pass it on, and whatever mood they're in, and then it goes and it goes and it goes. I believe in that. So I don't understand all the negativity, the positivity. I don't agree with things on one side. I don't agree with things on the others. I don't agree with everything on either side or whatever it might be. All I know is, to me, the most important thing about who's ever in there next passes it on. And that's all I'll say.
Yeah, passing it forward is really a great thing. And I really do believe in it. I really do think that you can change somebody's day and you can make it a hell of a lot better just by doing the simplest of things.
It's
I agree. And I try to, I've been doing that for a long time. I've tried. As much as I am a pain in the butt to a lot of people, and that's my sense of humor. But when it comes to real things, I'm there.
Well, and selfishly, it makes you feel better too. You feel better about yourself when you do something like that.
You should.
Yeah,
you should. But not everybody feels that way, and that's where narcissism comes in.
7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the English side and the Spanish side tomorrow. New York City FC playing host to the Chicago Fire. That's the pregame show on the network, which is nycfc.com/radio, the NYCFC app, and the TuneIn app. You will be able to drop down on the Apple broadcast. There's a drop-down feature to hear the English commentary. For the Spanish, you need to sync up. I missed a couple of games. I was home. It's easy to sync. Pause the audio at kickoff, wait for the video to catch up, knock them both at the same time, and you're all set for the rest of the game. It's not a difficult proposition, and it's fun. It's fun to hear the radio. It's fun to hear the radio.
It's a different type of broadcast. By the way, speaking of which, on your highlight that I just heard, boy, did you have the Nats turned on. I loved it. Oh my God.
Yeah,
that was great. That was cranked. No, that was more than normal. I mean, Matty Lawrence was fighting the crowd to say what he had to say. You can tell that in his ear, he was fighting the crowd. And that's what, and that elevated him. It's a technique.
Yeah. Well,
it's a technique. And it's very good.
That stadium and that crowd, Crew SC is loud to begin with. So they,
and the effects were really good. So thank you, Apple.
So Roberto, as we close, I will have a quote for you because we're both getting older. We're both in our 60s. We've both had some little health mishaps during the course of the 2024 year. But we're all good now. And this quote from Mark Twain, I think, says it all. Age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And I'll leave you with that. Shane, thank you so much for producing. For Roberto, I'm Glenn on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.